And your grandpa's 73 years old. He's worked on a lot of these, and he's never built one that fired like that. Never.
Hey, we're back out in the shop again today. We're gonna make another attempt at progress on the CJ2A. Today's goals: get the shifter mounted, get the temporary exhaust on, and then move on to see if we can get this thing to start. Let's go and we'll see what we get done. It's always a ton of fun if you can burn the camera guy. All right, eyeballs.
Yep.
Definitely burnt the crap out of me. Well, I don't think she'll ever come off, but it ain't the prettiest one I've ever made. All right, we're going shopping. We have the old exhaust out here in a pile, probably hotter than. It's not hot enough to melt the skin off. We're gonna hack this thing up and make some straight pipe exhaust, just from the exhaust manifolds down right here, so that we can get the O2 sensor screwed in, plugged in. I think we're getting really close to seat of the single fire. Transmission dipstick still needs to be glued down, but all of the major components are hooked up. So I think we might be close enough. We figured out fuel pump issues the other night. Believe it or not, that fuel pump is made so that the large lug is the ground and not the positive. So laying on my back and not being overly prepared and reading paperwork on it, I said, well, everything's usually large lug hot. I put the wire on there and went on about my business. Fuel pump was running backwards. So dug into it yesterday during the day, figured that out, and got the wiring switched around on it. It pumps a mountain of fuel out of it now, so we should be good to go.
Take it completely out and put it in.
So we got the signal wire hooked up for the ECU. What that does is allows, when you're cranking the motor and the battery voltage comes down, it ensures that the voltage doesn't drop below critical threshold through the ECU, reset the ECU. I think that that's the last piece of the electrical puzzle. We set the distributor, what should be number one, at 0 degrees initial advance. I think it might be time to see if this thing will make noise.
That is louder than snot.
Yeah, there's no exhaust on it.
Oh, you're leaking something.
Horrendous
Power steering.
leak.
Where?
This fitting right here, I think. Because there's a massive freaking oil pump over here right now.
Line that's not tight,
That's what it acts like.
but you can't see where.
Ooh, that's soaked. This
I'm
thing.
pretty freaking impressed.
Why?
It's fired.
I've never once put a motor in a vehicle
Nope.
and had it
Fire up the first time?
Nope.
literally on the, it didn't even make a full revolution of crank on the motor before it fired.
And your grandpa's 73 years old. He's worked on a lot of these, and he's never built one that fired that like that. Never.
All right, like you know, nothing ever goes as planned for us. Startup was good, oil pressure was good, charging system was good, power steering, power brake unit, not so good. We figured out, we think, that these barrel connectors are a different flare than the standard 45-degree flare for our hydraulic system, which in turn sprayed a bunch of oil out down there, made a big old mess, and caused it so we can't run the motor anymore today. So we are back to hosed again. Gonna have to go back to town, about a 15-minute drive to town, to try to figure out who is going to have these connectors, and then replumb all of this good stuff back in so that we can have the brake booster and the power steering system back together. So when we figure out some more, we'll be back with you. All right, since we had that debacle with the power steering lines and such, figured I'd move on to something I might be able to do something with. So I'm going to make an attempt to solder the end on here. Oops, I lost that thing. For the winch. Get this guy all done and put back together. One less piece of wiring we gotta try to remember for later, seeing as we're here with nothing to do, and bad case of the grumpies because nothing worked out the way we thought with that stupid hydraulic system. But so goes life. We'll move on. Alright, here we go.
Heat it up. Okay.
Air conditioner works too good. Cooled it off before we get it in there. Look, remember I told you guys that things don't work out so good for us? Check that out. How unlucky you gotta be that you solder the end of your cable back on and fill the end of your lug up with solder. That's how things work here. Heart transplant in the CJ2A is coming together well. Still got a little bit of floppiness on the steering column. We got to put the bolts in the floor. We pull the dash back out of it. Some weird stuff with the fuel gauge. Fuel gauge now reads perfect and empty. When there's no fuel in the tank, we put 5 gallons in a 15-gallon tank, and it reads almost 3/4 of a tank. So something with the ohm rating. I'm not sure whether it's a bad wire from the existing wiring that went back to the fuel tank. I just tied into that wire. Hindsight, I probably should have ran a new wire, but we thought everything was going to be okay, and it was not. So closer, closer, closer. Starting to feel like things are coming together. Our normal bad luck with a few things, but I think we're going to be okay. All right, another day back out in the shop. So what we think we figured out with this whole power steering leak issue, which you can see we've got some other fittings and such down in there, was we ended up with the wrong fittings from the parts house. These are M10 by 1 bubble fittings, and those are not the right fittings for what we needed. We needed 45-degree flare hydraulic fitting, and they leak like a sieve. They sprayed stuff everywhere. We were able to track down some 45-degree flare tees and some plugs. Got those guys put back in there. Everybody's hooked back up. So that problem looks to be remedied. We will fill that reservoir back up here in a bit. We got the fuel tank out of it right now. Figured out the problem also with the sending unit. Wire was good, everything was fine. What happened is that for whatever reason, when that sending unit was manufactured, the float on the end stuck down actually below the pickup. So it emptied, that thing would fall all the way down past the pickup edge. Well, because it was so much longer than the pickup, whenever you started putting fuel in, it was actually higher than the actual fuel level for the tank. What we ended up doing is bending that thing so that it was at the right height at empty, and then we're pretty close on fuel at this point. Probably a touch lower than actual fill level, but we'd rather be a touch lower than a touch higher. I'd rather have a few gallons left in there than run out a few gallons before, or a few miles before you thought your gallonage was out. So we're on to that. Things are buttoning up here. Hey, we've made it to the end of another day. It starts, it runs. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Help us grow this channel, and we'll catch you on the next one.